What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. We are here today to discuss all things AEW Dynamite and the show that was. Because, my goodness, guys, we definitely got a treat out of AEW and out of the matches that were on the Dynasty card and that we were privileged to watch as the fans chanted at one point, we're not worthy. um uh so definitely some new chants I think were started last night as well, and that being one of them. But my goodness, guys, like I think I'm pretty certain, rather, in the little preview show that I did really quick, I'm pretty sure I said that one of the only setbacks, I would say, and maybe not even a setback, but like a point that I kind of would have maybe focused on a little bit more was just some of the stories going into some of the respective matches. I think, like, for instance, even obviously we'll be getting into it, so I'll just table that. But just some of the matches that obviously looked good on paper, like I feel like some of the stories just could have made it even mean that much more. But man, as a whole, like I can't sit here and complain about the shit that we got. And AEW is just they're just one of those companies, man, that does that. Like you can kind of feel not iffy on the match itself because you know that it's gonna hit, right? But you can feel like, okay, like what was even like really the story, or like why are they fighting? Just to prove someone's the best, which I guess at the end of the day, like, should be the goal, right? But I think that kind of plays into who the champion is or the champions are. So that's kind of like a whole nother sub side rant for lack of better words. But yeah, like I just feel like some of the matches could have just meant that much more with just a little bit more meat and potatoes added into it, right? But man, I am not going to sit here and complain, like I said, about the matches that we got and the show that we got, because overall it was a fucking fantastic show. Um, and it makes you not even want to complain about anything, right? It just makes you thankful for the shit that we got. But and to me, like I don't view, maybe I'm biased, as what I say is complaining. Maybe I do complain sometimes in regards to wrestling, but to me, it's just like stuff that I would have done differently, or just that would have made more sense to me. But it's just my take on shit. You know what I mean? Just my opinion. It's probably not right. Doesn't make it right. But yeah, it's kind of why we're all here, right? Just to sit here and bullshit and just throw different shit at the wall and see what sticks. But that being said, I'm definitely gonna get into the show here because it was a packed show. Um, I think I didn't get a chance to watch the media scrum. I saw a little bit of when Swerve came out, so we'll get into that later as well. But oh, it was just it's it kind of feels like the start of a new era for AEW as well, which is kind of crazy. Not to steal anything from the other side or compare or anything like that, but and like I said, we'll get into that once we get to the main event itself. But I just feel like it's kind of like a not a reset button, because I feel like that even may be too strong, but it sparked a different direction, and it sparked a kind of I guess a reset is the right word, but it just something felt different about last night and coming out of last night's show. But with that being said, obviously, like I said, I'm gonna get right back to the rundown itself. I'm not gonna go through the pre-show because we obviously have a lot of shit to go through. But the first match ended up being Kazuchika Okada facing off against Pac for the AEW Continental Championship. And this one had a holy shit chant the second that the bell rang. And for match order and kind of a recap, I'm going, of course, with ProWrestling.net. So as always, shout out to Jason Powell. He's the man over there. And his site is just so easy to navigate too. Like I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Real quick. Sorry about that. But yeah, really, before I get into the match, really quick as well, I gotta say that I was kind of like questioning, or just like perplexed rather, when Okada first came in and they made him a bad guy. You know what I mean? Joining the elite and all that stuff. But man, like and not in the sense of if he can do it. I was probably more for it than against it, but in the back of my mind, I was kind of wondering, like, man, like, is there something that you're leaving on the table right off the bat and kind of not capitalizing on? But I think this is a slow build to the eventual face turn, obviously, of Okada and possibly the face of AEW or the champion Okada, which I don't see anytime soon, but not too far out either. But man, like just watching this match, like I knew like this was gonna be a good match rather, but this shit is just crazy. And the fact that I read it somewhere, maybe it was even on Jason's report, that this was the first time. Oh, Jim Ross had noted it because it was in his notes that it was the first time Okada and Pac met in a singles match, and that's fucking wild. Like that's that's insane. And again, I'm not gonna obviously sit here and go move through any of these matches. But I will say it was very cool how Okada kind of is able to play the crowd. You know what I mean? And kind of make them, obviously they're gonna want to cheer for him and let them cheer for him, but when he flicked the crowd off, like it just worked. It looked crazy because it's like what the fuck, but it worked. You know what I mean? And I think the slow build with the eventual turn for Okada, and I say that probably like a year from now. I would say like there's no reason to rush it. So get as much out of this bad guy Okada as you can, and have him just dominate. I mean, I don't know if it's a division, but dominate the continental world and the continental part of AEW, whatever division and whoever that encompasses, like let him dominate that. You know what I mean? Since I don't even really know if there's like a hierarchy besides the world heavyweight champ or the world championship. If obviously that's the number one, but is it the continental championship underneath of that, or is it the TNT title? I don't know. I don't have time right now. We don't have time right now, but I'm really like not confused. I'm really curious about that. Yeah. So if anyone knows, let me know. I'll see if I can pull it up really quick. See if they have it on their website. But I don't know. Like it's now going obviously Swerve and then who? All right, let's see. Oh, they redid their website though. That's nice. I remember that was one of my complaints. An actual complaint was that their website was just not great. And it's looking much better. So shout out to them. Um yeah, I don't know. Roster. Roster. Okay, so okay, here we go. And this probably means nothing, but in the order of champions from AEW's roster website, and this is obviously going to avoid some spoilers for the matches in advance, so apologize for that. We have our newly christened AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland in the number one slot, and they go horizontal, so it's rows of four. We have Swerve, then we have Tony Storm, then we have Willow Nightingale, the Young Bucks. So obviously you have your women's world champion first, and then your TBS champion for the women's side, and then your AEW World Tag Team Champions. And then after that, the next singles championship that we have listed here, so second row is how they have it labeled and listed here, rather, is Roderick Strong, the AEW International Champion. Next up after that is the TNT champion, Adam Copeland. Bullet Club Gold, the Unified World Trios Champions. Thank the Lord on that. And then you have Kazuchika Okada, the AEW Continental Champion, at the very end, coming in the rear there. So it's just kind of crazy to me that based on this, is Okada's championship the least important out of, or is it just how they needed to put it in some type of order, so that's just how the cookie crumbled? I don't know. Now I'm possibly even more perplexed than I was going into it. But anyway, that I guess that's not even important, guys. But I brought that up because my thought process is a year from now, if you have bringing it back in, if you have Okada going strong, right, defending the Continental Championship for throughout the next year, and then towards the 8-month, 10-month mark at the end of this year, you have him starting to show good guy tendencies and missing not missing the crowd, but embracing the crowd more and just kind of pandering to us a bit more. And obviously at that point, depending on where the stories are going, you can have the Bucks getting pissed off. Because I think the Bucks are going to be bad guys for a while. And they should be, but kind of do. And I don't even want to call it the Batista turn from back in the day with Evolution because that was still different. But you can you can still have Okada being built from now until this time next year as the guy, kind of like a Gunther role. Now that I think about it, kind of like the Gunther role, right? Where we know it was the World Heavyweight Champion, number one, and then number two was Gunther, the Intercontinental Championship on Raw. So when when Gunther was beat at WrestleMania by Sami Zayn, that was a big deal, and it was even bigger because we knew that was the number, not to call him the number two guy, but that was the number two slot. So you're right there, and Gunther made that championship, I don't want to say what it is, but he brought the prestige back to the Intercontinental Championship, right? And that's the same thing that Okada can do for the Continental Classic, or not Classic, the Continental Championship itself. He can build that. He can go. I mean, it won't obviously be 666 days, I think it was for Gunther. But I mean, fuck it. Like, he doesn't have to lose it this time next year. I'm just saying, as a potential turn, and you can obviously the longer the better, right? But I don't see them holding off um for too long there with wanting to keep uh Okada as a bad guy because I feel like they're gonna want to get their return on him and then some and to really broadcast him in that good guy route. But I really think that long term with him was the better decision, and then the short term with Osprey and kind of capitalizing on his strengths was the right call. So shout out to Tony Khan on that. That was a long-winded answer to my own question. But I was kind of thinking about that earlier, and as I sat down and was kind of gathering up some stuff, I was just thinking about Okada and like, man, like just seeing him and just seeing him flick off the crowd, just for whatever reason, just kind of like confirmed it for me too. I was like, man, this guy can really be a dick. So, and to be honest, like if you've listened to me before too, I'm relatively new-ish to New Japan as well. I knew of Okada, but I hadn't seen the majority of his matches, just maybe like one or two, up until a few years ago, or not even like a few years ago, maybe like a couple of years ago, within 1 to 2. So I'm still learning and appreciating the ore that is Okada. But again, shout out to both of these guys. And at the end of the match, the fans chanted, "He's our bastard" to Pac when he sat on the ringside apron. So shout out to Pac because that guy fucking kills it. I just wish we got it more, right? Like, what happens? Like, I know every time we seem to hear about it, it's like a work visa issue. But like, man, if there's something that we can do to like get that taken care of, like, can we? I mean, obviously, I'm sure they would have by now if they could have, but like, can we start a petition for him? Something. But of course, like I said earlier, Okada retained the AEW Continental Championship. And I will say again, I like that they're sticking with the rules and no outside interference. So shout out to them for that. Next up, we had the Adam Copeland, Eddie Kingston, Mark Briscoe match facing off against House of Black, which is Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. To be honest with you guys, my feed was cutting in and out, so I didn't see the majority of this match and one other. I know one other for sure. So I'm just going to get right to the point with this one. And I will say I was wrong. I was wrong with the majority of my picks, which says a lot about me. But or maybe more so that it says good things about AEW, or just that I sucked. We'll see. Um, you can use your own judgment on that and let me know. But with this one, this is another one I wanted to go back and watch. Obviously, since I didn't see the majority of it, I was surprised. I was really surprised that House of Black won. I'm here for it because obviously Malachi Black, like, goes without saying. And Buddy Matthews as well, for that matter. But Brita King has gotten a little bit more love lately, or overall, especially in the singles route, which is kind of interesting when you think about it as a whole. But I will say, I'm surprised that House of Black won, and I'm happy about it. And I think it's cool that the way that they kind of position this match, with hopefully it being positioned for Malachi Black to face off against Adam Copeland. Keep wanting to say Edge, for the TNT Championship. But man, like, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Because is Black going to beat Copeland? Which we'll get to that point if we're even able to cross that bridge. But yeah, like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk much about the match, but just reading Jason Powell's take here, the ending with the Rick Knox finish is just, come on. Like, why are we doing that to the refs? Like, it's just not cool, man. It's just like, can we just find a different way that doesn't involve the ref? um But the next match on the card was Julia Hart facing off against Willow Nightingale for the TBS Championship. Again, I was wrong on this one as well. Probably one of my favorite moments is when they showed Mercedes Monet backstage watching the monitor at it was like a weird 40 whatever degree angle to reference her WWE days, which is just fucking just fucking fantastic, just fantastic. But I will say again with this one that I'm surprised by the ending with this. The fact that Willow got a clean victory um over Julia. I hope that doesn't mean the worst for Julia, that she really is injured, or if she is, I hope it's nothing too major. Which I'm assuming it's not, right, since she was able to wrestle the match itself. But I guess it was a short match. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like they probably, if it was anything too major, obviously, and hopefully, she wouldn't have been in the match to begin with. But to me, that kind of even gives you more reasoning and more excuse for the fact that she could have got the title and did what I suggested in the preview prediction show, that she can hold it going into Double or Nothing. Mercedes Moné can beat Julia, then Mercedes' first opponent is Willow. But I will say, on the other hand, too, though, that I am stoked for Willow. She's a great character. She makes you believe, like, she's like that Bailey character when Bailey was first starting out in NXT. You thought this girl was happy all the time. You know what I mean? And it's just and even if she wasn't happy all the time, like, she's just not a bitch. She's just like never a bitch. Like, she may get slightly irritated and say something or look at you funny, but like, she's just great. um Obviously, after it they had Mercedes kind of address, well, not kind of, she came out and addressed and smiled and nodded towards Willow. So that match is obviously already set for Double or Nothing, which I believe is towards the end of May. I don't have, obviously, I never had the dates. Oh, May 26th. I should have just shut up and waited a second. Shout out to Jason again, because he knew I wouldn't have been prepared. But he had the date listed here because they aired a ad for Double or Nothing, which again is going to be in the MGM Grand Garden Arena on Sunday, May 26th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Which I wish they would. Part of me is like, it's kind of cool that they go back to certain arenas and kind of make that arena for that show type thing. But I kind of wish that they would broaden out more. And I'm in Florida, so we get a decent amount of shows, and I'm even willing to lose on a few shows just to diversify it up. It sounded much better in my head before I said it. Diversify it up. What else? Anyway, next up we had Roderick Strong facing off against Kyle O'Reilly for the AEW International Championship. That feud was still going in and out here, so again, I apologize for that, but I'm not really like a match breakdown person anyway. You guys know that. But again, I was wrong. We had Roderick Strong defeating Kyle O'Reilly here in 1720 to retain the AEW International Championship. After the match, Wardlow had joined Roderick Strong at the I was supposed to say at the ringside. At the ring, Adam Cole was wheeled in a wheelchair onto the stage by Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Cole stood up from the chair and walked to the ring. Taven and Bennett hoisted up strong on their shoulders. Cole shot Wardlow a nasty look until Wardlow turned to face him. Um, it was cool seeing Cole. You know what I mean? It was cool seeing Adam Cole back. Uh, it's very interesting that they already kind of moved on from Wardlow. I just feel bad for the guy, man. But yeah, that's gonna be another whole 5-10 minute rant. So I'm just gonna leave the Wardlow of it all out right now. But man, like money was missed on that one. I will say for sure. We got a video package next for Hook versus Chris Jericho. And this one, I'm pretty sure I was wrong on this one as well. And this one, I am very bothered by. I will just kind of be honest. I can't believe that Jericho defeated Hook and Jason has here is at 16 minutes and 35 seconds to win the FTW championship. It ended, Hook was pretty badly beaten up. He was pretty much like wobbling and struggling to maintain his balance and stay on his feet. Jericho went to ringside and pulled oh, what was the name of the baseball bat? Not Larry. What was the name of it? Lloyd, the baseball bat. Thanks, guys. Whoever listening back to this yelled it out for me. I heard you. Isn't that kind of creepy? But he got Lloyd. I'm pretty sure it's Lloyd. Excuse me, from underneath the ring. Returned to the ring and told Hook not to make him do it. Hook gave Jericho two middle fingers rather. Jericho slammed the bat over Hook's head. Taz then stood up ringside and the fans cheered. Like everyone was like, oh shit, type thing. Jericho then covered Hook for the 3 count. I can't believe, first of all, that this thing went 16 minutes and 35 seconds. I don't feel good about Jericho beating Hook, man. Like I get it. I get the long-term story that they're gonna be telling, but Hook already beat Jericho to begin with. So and I don't know what even Hook getting his win back against Jericho was gonna mean. You know what I mean? So at that point, Hook's beat him what 2-1. I don't know. To me, it's just icky. I don't know if this is a way to get rid of the FTW championship. If that was the case, you could have just had Hook defend it one more time even against Jericho if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Have him defend it and then actually beat Jericho. I'm going to hold out and not get too upset and see where Jericho winning takes us because normally I will say Jericho has a way of getting his share, but has an even better way of putting people over as well. Uh, and obviously Jericho is a very character based person. I was gonna say character, but that was redundant, obviously. So I'm going to hold out hope, but just on paper and visually, it just made me cringe, man. I wasn't there for it. I don't know. So again, I will wait and see. And Taz standing up was very interesting to me. I was kind of expecting him to just like rush the ring and not even let it finish because it was FTW rules. But I think it's cool too that he let his son fight his own battle. But obviously, as a parent, you can only sit back and watch so much before you physically like it. You have to hold yourself back. So thankfully, once Taz stood up, the match was pretty much ending at that point. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm gonna hold out hope and see where they go on this one, but it was not a great visual, in my opinion. Next up, we had Tony Storm facing off against Thunder Rosa. My favorite part of this match was the beginning, right when it started or right before. I think it was. I'm not sure if it was during the introductions or right after the bell rang, but when Thunder Rosa took off the mask that she was wearing and revealed that she had no face paint on, just a little bit of makeup, but no face paint and just to kind of signify and just put over and emphasize the importance of this match and what it meant to her and how personally she was taking this. So to see that and then I don't know to have Thunder Rosa not win still it kept my prediction great and on point which is cool. um but I don't know like I I just feel that they're just missing on something with Thunder Rosa. I feel like she's doing quality work when she's able to, but something's just not there. Something, and not with her, just with the whole package in the sense of this could have meant so much more too. And the promo that she cut wasn't on Collision. I saw the video of it. It was great. Like it was just fucking great. And I just wish that they were doing more with her. You know what I mean? I obviously they did a lot. She was in a women's championship match, got what 15 minutes on a pay-per-view. So they are doing something with her now, but I'm just afraid now that she's just gonna get like tossed to the back burner. And that's why I was hoping too that maybe a returning Britt Baker would maybe interfere and cost her the match. So that sets up a fresh but old story, one that we're all familiar with, right? That we can just get back into. But obviously that didn't happen here. I am happy that Tony Storm retained. I just feel for Thunder Rosa, you know what I mean? And especially with her adding in that touch with not having the face paint on, that just kind of it stood out a lot to me because in a way to me it was kind of like when a luchador takes off their mask type thing, or just something to that effect, you know? It's a sign of respect, but importance, and I don't know, like, it was just kind of excuse me, it just kind of hit me different, I guess, a little bit, and maybe because I've listened to Thunder Rosa a lot on, like, different interviews, so I know a little bit more of like, her backstory, so yeah, I don't know, but it was just not I hope they do something. And I hope maybe after this, like a couple months from now, once Mercedes Moné gets into her role as the TBS champion, which she's obviously going to end up winning, maybe her and Thunder Rosa. That'd be a good feud and a good program. You know what I mean? That's very on paper, very comparable skill sets, very comparable mic skills. In my opinion, maybe Thunder Rosa has the slight edge, as crazy as that may sound to some people. I mean, obviously, Star Power is going to go to Mercedes, but I think that'd be good, and that would be something that you can get a good build out of. Have it start in like a January and lead to a dynasty, and then the next pay per view or whatever. Now that since they're doing more monthly pay per views, have it play out over a couple months. You know what I mean? But they can definitely get something or more out of Thunder Rosa. Is kind of my long story short. um, but next up, guys, and this one I definitely need another sip real quick of my tea. Love me some tea. I will say if anyone watching this or listening to this is in Cleveland or the Ohio area, I'm sorry because I went there for a work trip last month and we went to a good amount of different restaurants and at least six we started keeping count. So maybe probably seven, at least verified six restaurants did not have sweet tea. I was just like the first couple times I was just like what, and then it just became a running joke. So then we were just asked just to see, so we can get a Cali one way or another. You know what I mean? Yeah, I feel like there's something more that we can get, and a lot more that we can get going forward. But yeah, with that being said, guys, this I think next up that we have here on the card just kind of goes without saying, and nothing kind of like with the prediction show that I said. Nothing that I say would do it justice. Like a recap wouldn't even do this shit justice. So of course that's Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson, and another holy shit chant had broke out with this one before the match even started when they were just face to face. This match I think it got probably the most amount of new chants probably created that I have personally ever heard. Um, So I'm again, guys. I'm not gonna sit here and try to pick apart this match. Um, the moment that I will say that kind of that just I'm not gonna say took me out of it, but that kind of bummed me out. But it was the ending. It was I guess the ending, and then after the match with them hyping up that Danielson was injured and that the match probably should have ended, but Osprey didn't see that or Bryan Danielson was kind of fucked up, and then still hit the hidden blade and then pinned him. That part I just didn't it kind of made me feel like with just and again this is completely just me and probably not the general consensus. I haven't actually even listened to what anyone's take was on it. Um besides just briefly skimming through Pro Wrestling.net here just to kind of get a match by match recap here. But it just kind of took me out of that moment, and I couldn't really enjoy Osprey winning as much just because I was like, man, like, and is he really injured? I mean, he's probably not, but he being Brian, but it's still kind of, but just that little nitpicky thing to the side, like, my fucking goodness, man. This went, what? I think, yeah, it was 32 minutes. I was gonna say at least over, a little over 30. Like, yeah, like, my goodness. um, yeah, please just go watch this, guys. Please just go watch this match. Like, stop what you're doing now and go watch it. Next up, we had the ladder match, which I'm sure they were probably hitting themselves for having to follow up Osprey and Danielson. But that, of course, was Matthew and Nicholas Jackson facing off against FTR for the vacant AEW tag team titles. Sorry, my dog needed to get on the bed because she's on watch duty. So with this match, I'm just gonna get to the ending here as well. They 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 did the thing. They did the thing with Jack Perry, right? They had, and I will say too, there was this one spot in the match where I don't know why this one stands out to me, but fucking um oh my gosh, was it Cash? Yeah, it was Cash. I always get their names mixed up for whatever reason, or I know what the name is, and then when I go to say it, I question myself. But Cash, he was doing like pretty much the suicide dive to Nicholas, I believe it was, who was standing outside the ring, right in front of a table that was set up, kind of leaning against the barricade. Stepped aside, pulled a Samoa Joe, jumped out of the way, and Cash just took a header right through the table. Ended up turning his body, so it wasn't like an actual header, but man, like that shit was brutal. It made me think about this spot. What was the pay per view? Was it a? I'd know it if I put more thought into it, but it was a match between Chris Jericho, and Chris Benoit. It was for the Intercontinental Championship. It was a ladder match, and I'm pretty sure it was a ladder match, or was it? Now I'm questioning myself again, or was it a match prior to it? But anyway, Benoit had gone to do a suicide dive through the middle of the ropes, right? Just standard suicide dive to the outside. Jericho had a steel chair and fucking wailed the chair as Benoit was coming through, and that shit was just ungodly. Just, oh my god, just brutal. Um, Granted, no one is swinging anything at Cash, but still, man, just I don't know why it made me think about that, but I was like, Jesus, man, that's just fucking brutal. So shout out to all four guys who put their bodies through hell for this match. But the ending, of course, is what everyone is going to be talking about as well. At the end, Dax Harwood, and Nicholas climbed the ladder, and both men got their hands on one of the belts. Harwood slammed on one of the belts on Nicholas. Slammed one of the heads, rather, sorry, on Nicholas's head to knock him off the apron. A masked man ran out and shoved the ladder over. Security grabbed the masked man and removed the mask to reveal Jack Perry. Nicholas pulled one of the belts down to win the match. And of course they go on to say Perry was led out of the arena. Um, while Excalibur had said that he had jumped over the rail, and Excalibur said that that's a criminal offense or some shit like that. And I'm just like, y'all are fucking funny. Like, y'all gonna bring that shit up now? Um, but yeah, my dog's right here now. But man, of course we all expected the scapegoat to make his appearance here. The The only thing about this was it took Dax. Like, Dax had to step down a couple rings, so obviously the timing was off slightly, which shit happens, you know what I mean? Like, I fucking couldn't do it better, right? So I'm not even gonna nitpick on that. But that, because at first I was gonna be like, okay, well maybe they're not gonna do it during the match, but once he was kind of just hanging out up there, I was like, oh, okay, like here comes Jack. But yeah, like I loved the look that Jack Perry gave afterwards. I think that smug, just piece of shit look that he knows that you hate him, and that he just revels in that shit, you know what I mean? Um, but for the story, I think going forward, when he was going through the crowd, he did the elite sign, right? So I think that that's just fucking perfect, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned it here as well, but no surprise and no shock. You know, probably one of the most predicted things out there is, you know, Jack's gonna return and most likely join the elite. But I just love the dynamic that they're gonna have going forward. You're gonna have Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. You're gonna have Jack Perry, the new scapegoat, Jack Perry. Which that beard, props to you, man. He looks completely different, night and day. Um, and then you have Okada, right? Which fuck, like talk about elite, like that's some good shit, man. That's some good shit. And again, I think it's still the whole scapegoat thing is cause kind of funny, like the phrase and labeling of it itself, but it is what it is. The main event, we are finally here. Of course, that is Samoa Joe facing off against Shane. I don't know what to call him Shane, but that is his name. Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship match. Oh, and earlier I saw Justin Roberts' name when he mentioned right before when he was doing the introductions for the Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson match, when he said it was like a certified dream match or something like that. I was like, come on, bro, like, come on. Um, but Swerve came out and he was dressed as, I'm pretty sure it was Black Panther. So that was pretty dope. And I saw a tweet from Mikey Ruckus, the dude who makes the entrance music for AEW. Shout out him, he's great. He had mentioned that he got the call at like 6 p.m. and had like 55 minutes before the show started. To kind of bust out that prelude to I keep on calling Shane. What the fuck? To Swerve's entrance. So shout out to him and shout out to everyone involved with the entrance. It was pretty great. And again, I will say as well. I like that they had Jim Ross on commentary for this also, and added that feel and that next level type approach to it. So again, to me, I like the presentation. I like the significance of it. I like that they made it feel like a big deal and they took it as such. So with that being said, though, I will say I am kind of bummed. As much as we all knew it was going to happen, I am kind of bummed that Samoa Joe is no longer the champ. Um, it's just going to be sad to see him or to not see him on TV. Rather, but to see the emotion that Swerve had when he went to the turnbuckle to hit the Swerve stomp, the second Swerve stomp, it was just dope, man. It reminded you of like this is what their hard work leads to, and this is what their hard work pays off to be, and what the brass ring, right, is, and what everyone wants. It's to be the man, it's to be the woman, it's to be the face. You know what I mean? And again, that's what Swerve was referencing a little bit in the media scrum that I heard only halfway through, and then I had to get to sleep last night. But definitely gonna watch that tonight as well. But I try to squeeze it in before Raw. But it really just showed what sticking to a plan and sticking to a story, and the story being the evolution of Swerve, you know what I mean? And the progression of Swerve, and the fact that that dude went from being in the tag team match, and he referenced this in his media scrum, that he went from being in that tag team match in Chicago with the Acclaimed to like being questioned. Oh, like when he was sitting right there when Tony Khan was asked if, or I'm pretty sure it was when he was sitting right there, if an audible was thought to be had with how the fans were reacting, even though Swerve and Keith Lee retained the tag titles, and then they ended up losing them just a few months later. Swerve mentioned that right after that, that was kind of like a wake up call for him, and not in those words specifically, but he had referenced that it was like not that specifically, but to get to the spot he needed to be at, he needed to look at himself, and he needed to assess himself and to kind of humble himself and say like, okay, this is something that you're not great at, and how are you gonna get better to be great? You know what I mean? Type shit. So with this, to get back to the match, I fucking love in the beginning of it. One of the things that stood out to me too was just the psychology that Swerve showed in it, and the fact that you could tell that he studied his opponent. He was ready and he was prepared for when Joe was going to step away. When someone's on the top rope and they're looking to jump off, And Joe realizes that he steps away instead of standing there waiting for it or trying to counter the move. He just simply walks to the side, which is fucking tremendous. Swerve was ready for that, and this was early on. He was ready for that, landed on his feet, and I think kicked him or did some shit. But I liked little things like that. So I'm very excited that Swerve has finally been crowned. I love the significance behind it, the symbolism behind it. I just love everything about it. I've been a huge Swerve fan for years now, and I think WWE really dropped the ball when they let him go. And I think that was probably a chip on his shoulder as well, if I had to assume. But I'm really excited to see what he ends up doing going forward. I hope that they make him the guy, and I hope the focus is put on him and not on, oh yeah, Swerve's our champ, but let's see what Okada's doing type shit. You know what I mean? Or let's see what the Elite are doing, or let's see if MJF comes back soon, what MJF is doing or what Osprey is doing. So I think very soon you need to have an opponent for Swerve to go up against right off the bat. Not even sure, haven't even put any thought into it until now of who that could be. But if your end goal is having Osprey versus Swerve at All In, which I even feel like that's too early. I feel like you could build up to have Osprey and Okada at All In, and you can have Osprey going for the title against Okada there. Because I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. You know what I mean? If and granted, that would mean most likely Okada losing, so that kind of takes away from my build earlier of the year out. But just kind of spitballing here, you know, if you want if you want the focus to be on Osprey and you want him to win something significant, having him beat Okada for a title is that, you know what I mean? Granted, it's not the world championship, but I guess maybe not according to their roster page. But it's I'm sure the Continental Championship is maybe like second or third from the top, so it's not a bad, I don't want to say consolation prize, but it's not a bad prize at all. You know what I mean? And then you can have him continue his build. You can have some bullshit happen throughout the year and then have him build until next year. I just in a great, you know, if the Swerve run from now until leading into the summer is kind of shitty, then yeah, of course you can take the title off of him or slide Osprey into that challenger position for Swerve, and then still go into All In having Osprey versus Swerve for the title. But man, like I just feel like you can get a lot of Swerve too, and maybe it's all the shit that we've been seeing and doing. Like, there's nothing wrong, and we should get back to having a little bit longer title links. You know what I mean? And especially, excuse me, with how many titles we fucking have, and especially in AEW, like you have enough titles to where you should have like a couple main ones, like especially your world championship, stay on one person and have them be a fighting champion for a year. You know what I mean? If not a year, close to a year itself. And then have a couple of your secondary and tertiary titles. Those can change. Like your depending on, and I really wish we get some type of clarification if TNT is higher than Continental or Continental is higher than TNT. So maybe hopefully we'll get some clarification on that. But whichever one is your B and whichever one is your C, you can have the C maybe rotate every 2-3 months. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just kind of spitballing and just kind of thinking out loud type shit. But the overall feel though, in just the way that he presented himself, he being Swerve at the, I think it was like maybe 5 minutes that I saw from his interview at the media scrum. Like, dude is a fucking star, and I'm so happy they pulled the trigger. I think he is the man for that role. And I think that it's not just a one hit wonder or like a cute catchphrase or a cute song that people like to sing and you know vibe out to, and then he just kind of fizzles out, or like a fandango, you know what I mean? He's much more than that. um so yeah, like I think it's really cool to see AEW kind of respond in some ways and kind of listen to the audience and keep going. But I think the next few months, especially going into the summer, are going to be crucial and the key to them. And granted, too, like they're doing okay with what they're working with right now with a good amount of top level stars. And they don't even have your Kenny Omegas, your Hangman Page, your MJFs. You know what I mean? So depending on, I believe Omega is still going to be a good amount of time. So, and again, no rush on that. Like, take years if you need to, my dude. Um, But I'm pretty sure we'll probably get MJF back within the next 6-ish months. So you're gonna have him. I'm not really sure what's going on with Hangman Page, but he's kind of floating around out there. So you have options, and that could even be the first opponent for Swerve. You can go right back to that and squash that out completely if you need to or want to. Not really advocating for it, but that was just a quick thought since I brought Hangman up, and probably an easy go to. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think of the show down in the comment section or on Twitter at kickashpodcast _ or on my personal page at ASHMANNS. You can find me on TikTok as well at kickashpodcast _ But yeah, until next time, guys, enjoy wrestling. Have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.